Good morning and welcome to the Genesis Legal Group presentation of the summer co-parenting session in a series that we have been super excited to bring to you. And today I am with my entire team here at Michigan, and we're so happy that we could be with you. While we're waiting for some more participants to show up, I just want to lay some ground rules that this is a really safe space for each of you to really come to ask any questions that you like, but keep in mind that we're not answering any legal questions per se. We are really here to help you from a practical standpoint with any co-parenting concerns you might have. And summer is a great and exciting time for children and for families to come together and have some more relaxed time together. And so that's why we're super excited. Not only do we love summer here in Michigan, but I know in Arizona, you have summer all year round, but it's just a really nice time for families, and we thought the topic of summer would be great to help you along your co-parenting journey. So welcome to the Sun, Sand, and Shared Custody presentation. Again, just a few ground rules before we start. Just remember that this is really a private and safe space for those who do want to ask questions. So please keep everything confidential if you can, and feel free to write any questions that you'd like in our chat. And I have read through each and every one of your questions that you did present to us prior to today's seminar. And I know a lot of you have some really serious concerns, and nothing is more personal than your children. And we are here to help you through all of your concerns and issues and anything that you might feel is relevant to being the best parent and co-parent that you can be. And if I don't touch upon all of your questions during this 1 hour seminar, we are definitely here for you. And any participant in this seminar is entitled to a free consultation. So once we are done with the seminar, feel free to reach back out to us, and we are here to help you anytime. And I also offer, aside from legal work, I also offer personal coaching to help you, once again, from a more pragmatic standpoint with respect to your co-parenting concerns. So feel free to reach out to me or any one of our team members here at Genesis Legal Group of Michigan or Arizona at any time that you feel you need to. So let's just jump right into it. So here we are in the middle of summer. We're already in the middle of July, and summer months are really, really important for kids to just get back to being kids. Most often they get a break from school, unless they're in year-round schooling. Most children really just enjoy the break from school. They want to embrace a more relaxed schedule. And if you're anything like me, most parents like a more relaxed schedule too. It's super important for you as a parent to allow your children this time to be kids. And sometimes it does come into play with your co-parenting schedule because you're not in that regimented schedule or the pattern. Sometimes there are more vacation opportunities for each parent. Sometimes the children will be going to camps. So it's really important that you try to cooperate and collaborate to the best of your ability with the co-parent, because we always want to make every summer memorable, because we just can't get that time back. And remember that children love to be the captains of their own adventure. And as parents, we try to steer their ship a little bit, if you will. But as kids, it's really up to them to tell you and for you to talk to them and explore really what they want to do for their summer. And try to keep it age appropriate, though. We don't want to give them carte blanche, opportunities to do whatever or anything they want with anyone they want. But keep in mind that, kids are really trying to find their way. And the older they get, they really want to try to assert their own independence. So ask your child what they would like to do this summer, any special camps or any special classes. Really try to foster that one-on-one relationship. And if you have more than one child, it's really important to take that time to spend quality time with each of your children in the manner in which that child really wants of you. Perhaps it might not be what you want to do, but if it's something that's really good for them or what's in their heart to do, then try to do it as much as you can. And when dealing with your co-parent, perhaps if you don't have the best relationship with your co-parent, or if there's a little struggle or competitiveness with them, try your best not to let emotions overtake you when knowing what you want to do with your child. If there's a trip that you want to take, make sure you talk with the co-parent and let them know what you're hoping to do with them. And hopefully they won't try to beat you to that or compete with you, but make sure you always put your children's best interest first. And if it's something that your child really, really wants to do, but your co-parent wants to do it and has already done it or wants to do it before you can do it or have the opportunity to, try not to let your ego get in the way and just always remember that this is what your child wants and this is really what's in their best interest. So let your child lead and really support their decisions. And again, if they've already expressed what they want to do with the co-parent and you haven't had that opportunity yet, try not to be upset that they're stealing your thunder or being more competitive with you, but instead really try to embrace that, okay, my child is getting the experience that he or she wants. I can do something else with them, or we'll do something else, or I'll do something equally fun with them. So you can create your own memory with them, but your child still gets to do what he or she wants. So I touched on this earlier with your discussions with co-parenting and with your co-parent. And being really clear is always the best. And sometimes it's difficult to be clear with the co-parent when there are high emotions. I understand that most of our custody cases and co-parenting issues deal with a parent who has been involved with the other co-parent. And usually they had a relationship and then there was a falling out. And with children involved, it makes it that much messier. So that much more messy. So we just always want to make sure we try our best to take the emotion out of it, be extremely respectful of the other co-parent, and discuss things clearly and concisely. Sometimes it's difficult to do that verbally, so we try to encourage you to write your desires in an email perhaps, or a text message, but always be respectful. Remember that those text messages and emails may sometimes be used against you. So you want to make sure that you are arming yourself with enough good karma, if you will, so that whatever you put out there will come back to you. And if it doesn't come back to you from the other co-parent, it's okay because your children will feel it and will sense it. You might not see that now, but in several years from now, trust me when I tell you, your children will sense the parent who was the more reasonable one, who was the more giving one, who was the more loving one. If you feel like you are the one always taking the high road, sometimes it's hard to bear. But like I said, trust me when I tell you, it really serves your children to the best that you can serve them and in their highest good. So always try to do what's in their best interest, take emotion out of it, and always try to be the better person. So discuss your summer plans with your co-parent, consider your vacation schedule, and if the other co-parent isn't on board or if they're not comporting with any kind of court order in terms of who's putting the schedule first. Sometimes many court orders say, okay, by May 1st, we have to tell the other co-parent what holiday schedule they want, or the next year, then it's their other co-parent gets to choose first. And if they don't do it, and they're a day or two late, sometimes it's important to be reasonable, but You also have to maintain your boundaries to the best of your comfort level. But just remember, your children are the ones who are feeling all of this. So do your best to communicate clearly and concisely, but always respectfully. So I touched upon this a little bit about the court orders. And make sure that each of you, each co-parent puts out the schedule respectfully and in the right timing pursuant to any court orders. Keep your calendar updated, try to be as organized as you can. Certain things come up, there's work schedules that come up or spontaneous family gatherings. Just remember that it's your children who are the ones that will feel the effects of any kind of disagreement between the two of you. If you think that they would truly desire to do something or benefit from being a part of a family function and it maintains their normalcy, you really want to try to cooperate with the other parent as much as you possibly can. Make sure you keep up with our Family Wizard, which is really an application. It's an online emailing tool that allows the parents to be much more civil with one another. We use it a lot here in Michigan because courts and attorneys will have access to that if necessary. So it really monitors the tone of an email. But if you don't have those tools or you choose not to use them, really try to watch how you speak with the other parent and always try to be as open and flexible as you possibly can, because flexibility is key. And we also want to show just how accommodating we can be if necessary. And if, again, the other parent isn't being as accommodating, remember that it's really for your child's best interest. And the next time, perhaps don't be as accommodating. But if it's something that your child really wants to do, then of course, you probably should do it. So here's some tricky parts about summer planning and summer activities. Oftentimes, the court order will discuss how families, how parents should share those fiscal responsibilities. Usually, extracurricular activities are discussed. And again, this is outside of child support. Sometimes you have a parent who is not willing to spend anything on anything outside of child support. When you have a parent like that, I know it's very frustrating and it can be very difficult to navigate the summertime schedule or the summertime activities. Unfortunately, you just have to deal with the hand that you're dealt. And in those instances, if your child really wants to do something, make sure that on your parenting time schedule, you try your best to get your child in that camp. And if your other co-parent doesn't want to help with the monetary concerns or the monetary obligations, then you're unfortunately going to have to bear that alone. If that extracurricular activity or that camp or whatever activity it is that your child wants to do falls on that other parent's schedule, well, then you're just gonna have to explain to your child, son or daughter, I'm really sorry that you can't participate in this. But on my calendar, on my days, I definitely would love for you to do that. And perhaps you can talk with the other co-parent, try to allow your feelings once again to be set aside and discuss with that co-parent just how much this activity means to your child. Maybe they'll see that it's best for them. Maybe your child, as they get older, will be able to express to that other parent the activities that really matter. But sometimes you, again, just have to deal with the hand that you're dealt. Try to prevent misunderstandings, try not to disparage the other parent. And if there is no compromise on the monetary aspects, you may need to take the other parent back to court. It is very difficult to change a judgment or to change a court order. However, child support orders are definitely modifiable, and you can definitely take the other parent back to court if the value of doing so exceeds the cost of it. And an attorney can definitely help talk through you, through those things with you, and will be able to help you through whether it is something that you should do, shouldn't do, and the pros and cons of both. So, and if anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free to ask in our chat. We're open to answering any questions that you might have. Something that is really simple, but not always easy is just what I touched on earlier, communicating and collaborating with the co-parent. It's a simple idea, it's a great idea, but when the other co-parent might not be on board, when you have high emotions, if they have high emotions, if there's been a really, really hostile relationship in the past between you two and you just haven't gotten past it, that simple idea is extremely difficult to follow through with. So do your best, maintain your boundaries, maintain your own self-respect, but try your best to communicate effectively with the co-parent in terms of what you know your child would like to do that summer. If there's a family event or a family trip or an outing or a reunion, and you really want your child with you, but it's not on your parenting time, do your best to communicate that in a way that will not be offensive to your other co-parent. Perhaps change some days, be flexible, perhaps give that other co-parent an extra day or two if you really want to take that child on their time. Do it in a way that is a little bit more respectful, less hostile, and less emotional. And I can guarantee you that they will receive it a lot better and that there's no tit for tat. Don't bring up all the past stuff into it and just really take it at face value. And if you need to put it in writing, do that. And again, we at Genesis can help you draft certain emails to that other co-parent to really help you approach it in a more professional, pragmatic, and less emotional way. But we want your children to experience the best summer that they can. Every summer that they have, they're going to be 1 year older. And so are you. And you want to enjoy the time as much as possible because these times are precious and rare. And the quality time that you have with your children is very important. So try not to let any kind of hostility or adversarial relationship with your co-parent get in the way of those precious memories. So no questions up till now, I guess, huh? We don't have any questions. So
Not yet.
when we are in summer, we have to be flexible and adaptable, just like children. They are not as tied to any kind of strict schedules. Most extracurricular activities are over. And so they're really just enjoying sleeping in, going to the pool, having fun with their friends. So try to be a little more relaxed and flexible in your approach as well. I know the days can be difficult, especially if you work. It's difficult to find childcare sometimes. But that's why open communication with the co-parent is so important. If their in-laws or if their family friends can watch your children on days that you have to work and you need that help, try not to let your ego get in the way of, well, it's my parenting time, they need to be in my house. If it's something for your children and if it's something for the best interest of your children, then perhaps you can work it out where during the day they go to the other parent or they go to the other parent's family member or babysitter or daycare. Adaptability is very, very crucial. And oftentimes, like I mentioned before, certain things come up that you weren't expecting. So really try to be relaxed and willing to go with the flow. You will have a much better time, and so will your children. So we want to allow that open, that expressive environment. We don't want your children to feel unsafe being able to tell you something such as, hey, mom, can I go over to dad's house today? Because I really want to play with Johnny, the neighbor across the street. And if you are so worried that you're losing control or you're losing a grip on your child's day to day because they're going to be more with their other parent, well, then truly that's what you're going to manifest. The more worried you are about the closer grip you have on your children, the more control, truly over time, it'll just be the opposite. The less they'll want to be with you because it'll be too rigid for them. Be open, be flexible, try to show them that you're really doing what's in their best interest. And the more you take that approach, the more that you always keep in the forefront, I am doing what's in the best interest of my children, and truly believe that. And every action should be behind that motive. Every action you take should have the intention, what is the best interest of my child? With that intention, then you will be placing your attention on the right things.
Okay, we'll pause for a moment to address a comment and slash question in the chat. So this one comes from Kim, and she said, a few years ago, my kids went on vacation with their dad and his new partner's family. During that time, the partner physically and emotionally abused my child, and none of her family stood up to her. This information wasn't reported to me. My child probably thought it was okay because it was quote unquote punishment. I don't hit my children, and so I know they didn't learn that from me. It wasn't until a few months later that a family member reached out to tell me what happened. So, what is the best way to go about having that conversation with your children about how those actions were not okay and those people are not safe people because they're still very young children?
So abuse of any kind should not be tolerated. And I'm very sorry to hear that you learned from it. You said years later, months later. Depending on the age of your children, you can either speak with them directly or bring them to a certified therapist or a professional where they feel safe to open up and talk. Now, it might not come out right away. It might take a long time for that child to feel safe. If it's a difference of how you discipline your child, some parents believe in corporal punishment, some do not. If the abuse was beyond that, beyond a spanking, let's just say, then it definitely needs to be brought to the authorities. If the other family member is comfortable being a witness, then you may need to prosecute. I don't know, based upon your question, how severe the abuse was, and it may still be ongoing. So typically, if a person resorts to that kind of quote unquote discipline and it really rises to the level of abuse, you may have an issue on your hands where you need to go back to court. You need to assert that you want full custody and the reasons why. Now, opening up a custody dispute, as you may or may not know, is not an easy task. You have to have enough evidence to prove what you're saying is true. And that evidence is established by filing a police report, making sure what the witness is telling you is true, perhaps speaking with your child in an age appropriate way. If they are not coerced into talking, that information may or may not be used in court. There are professionals that can speak with your child without soliciting an answer from them that is much more reliable and that can be used in court versus one that's considered solicited. So depending on, like I said, the nature of the abuse, and if it's ongoing, if it was a one-time offense, if it was a one-time occurrence, typically it's not. If that's the pattern, if that is the way that this person is, I don't know. Again, there's a lot of unknowns here. So please call us. We're definitely happy to walk you through this. It's a very specific scenario, but it should not be tolerated because as your children grow, their personalities are formed between the ages of 1 and 7. Usually, that's what most science journals really say, 7 or 8. So you don't want your child to feel as though this is their normal, because they will grow up with so many different symptoms of that. And they could become an abuser themselves, or they could feel that this is normal and find themselves in similar situations as adults. We don't want that to happen. We want to raise productive children. We want to raise productive citizens. And typically, there are so many studies that say when a child is in split homes, so long as one of the parents is a stable, secure provider, and they provide their child with a safe, secure environment so that child can flourish, then usually that child will grow up to be confident and safe and feeling fulfilled and secure within themselves. But if the abuse is, again, enough to, tip the scales, then you really need to do something about it. Again, abuse should not be tolerated in any manner, in any form. And we're here to help you, so please reach out and we'll give you a personalized consultation to really address your specific question in more detail. I hope that answered that question for you. If it didn't, feel free to reach out again. So we want to make sure that you are keeping your care up, you as parents. It's super important that you maintain your care mentally, physically, emotionally, because we want you to be at your best. If you are really, really stressed, again, maybe because of what you've learned, giving the example that you just raised, if you're concerned that your child is not doing well in the other home, not flourishing, or their grades are suffering, usually when abuse is taking place, we can see it in all different forms. Sometimes the child acts out. Sometimes they take it out on you, the parent who is safe. Sometimes they, will find people at school to hang out with that are really bad influences, or their grades will suffer, or they'll skip school, or they'll start lying, or their behavior will be really, opposite of what they had been before. That plays a lot of stress on a parent. And as parents, we only want the best for our children. So, yes, you are doing all you can for your child, but remember to do you first. It's like the saying when you're on an airplane, you have to provide yourself with that oxygen first before you can save your child. Because if you don't have air, you can't possibly give air to your child. And similarly to you, if you don't give yourself the nourishment that you need, taking the priority and the time that you need for yourself, you can't possibly be there for your child emotionally or physically or mentally. You need to be there for yourself first and then be the best version of yourself for your child. They will feel it. They'll feel your stress. They'll feel your anxiety. They'll feel your tension, and they won't know what to do with it because it's an intangible, but they can feel it, they can sense it. So make sure you're taking care of yourself first, and then you'll be able to be in a better mindset to be able to take care of your child and do what you need to do. You'll be able to have better boundaries. You'll be able to maintain a much more emotionally detached aura or sense of being around your co-parent. And that will give you strength, and you'll feel much more empowered to deliver the message you need to deliver to that co-parent, to communicate more effectively with that co-parent. And you'll also be able to discipline your children in a much more healthy and well-rounded way. So again, don't feel guilty, do what's in your best interest, and then everything will fall into place. So here we go with kind of in line with what you talked about in your question. And summertime is not always fun time, right? It's difficult to navigate certain parenting time schedules. Sometimes things come up that you can't be a part of. There are sometimes many firsts in the summer that you won't be a part of. You won't be a part of perhaps your child riding the bike for the first time without training wheels. You'll be sad that you missed that because they did it at their other parent's house. Or you'll be sad that you weren't able to be at the family reunion that you were at for 10 years before. Sometimes those things are really, really hard. And then sometimes, you'll feel like you're not a part of your child's life because you're not gonna be a part of some of those memories or those really special moments in their life, and you'll feel like you're missing out. But that's why it's important to take care of yourself, and that's why it's important for you to have a well-rounded life outside of your child. Because if you're not feeling whole, then you possibly can't be a whole parent when your child does return to you. And you don't want to take things out on your child or show resentment or resistance about the co co-parent in front of your child, because your child will feel that and then they're not going to want to be around you. Never disparage the other co-parent. No matter how right you may be about something, no matter how right you may be about a topic or an issue, don't express that to your child because they won't understand and they'll just resent you down the road. They won't understand that their dad or their mom doesn't care or doesn't love them or doesn't pick them up all the time. All they care about is seeing that person. We don't want to alienate either. We hear a lot about alienation and parental alienation. That's not the right way to approach parenting. We deal with that a lot, and many times it's extremely unfair. If the other co-parent is alienating you, disparaging you, you don't get back at them by doing the same because your child will feel it and will suffer. Remember, we're doing what's in their best interest, not in yours. So, as hard as it is to separate your feelings from doing what's right, remember, do what's right, have the intention always to do what's in your child's best interest, and allow your attention to flow in the best way possible. So celebrate those moments, celebrate the time that you have with them. Again, don't let your fears, your resentment, your anger, your sadness build, because time is so fleeting and time is so precious and summertime is so short. Remember that your children really want to enjoy their time. They want to be with you. And depending on the ages of their children, talk with them about celebrating life, celebrating the moment, celebrating the summertime, and really try to do what your children really want to do that summer. If it's a special trip, maybe, talk about where they want to go, maybe take a long weekend away, a special camping trip. Try to capture both small and big moments and live in the moment. So again, don't let your resentment build. Try to do what's in their best interest. And as we always like to say, there is a shifted family dynamic. It's your family doesn't look the same depending on what stage you are in your co-parenting journey. It could be, in the middle of it right now that you're in the middle of a custody dispute. You could be years from that, but somewhere along the line, you just have to know that it's still family. Your children are your family, and the other parent is their family. Celebrate that. And if there's another step parent involved in the mix or step siblings, try not to let, again, your ego get in the way. Just try to embrace that your child has more people to love them, more people to care for them, more fun to be had, more siblings to share things with. But if there's any type of abuse or any type of wrongdoing, don't tolerate that. And we're here to help you through the real awful parts of the step sibling or step parent relationship dynamic. But if it's all good or mostly good, or if it's somewhat good and you can tolerate the bad, try to do that. Try to focus on the good, because what we focus on grows. If you focus on the bad, then in your eyes, that's all you'll see. Focus on the greatness of life, focus on the great things that your child will be experiencing this summer, and their focus will grow too. And so you'll start seeing positive things. You'll start focusing your mind more on the positive and less on the negative. And you'll be very surprised at how quickly your world and that family dynamic will shift. So the more you focus on something, the more it will grow. And that's what I'd really like to share with you today. Try to focus on the good, and the good will follow. And here's a great quote. Together we create unforgettable memories, balancing love and responsibilities with grace. Give yourself grace. We're not perfect. We try to do things that are in our children's best interest every day, but we make mistakes. Sometimes we make big mistakes. But if you have the intention of doing what's in your children's best interest at all times, then those mistakes are repairable, and you too will flourish in the end. And you too, as a family dynamic, will flourish, and your children will flourish. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we're here to answer any other questions that you might have. I know that we did have some questions that came through that I would like to touch upon that that I don't believe they're on today. But one was, what do we do if the other co-parent isn't allowing the shared parenting time schedule like they once were? And they're also alienating the children extremely. And like I talked about before, if it is something that is really dire and you definitely need to bring it back to court, we're here to fight for you. We don't want you to tolerate intolerable circumstances. It's not fair to you. That being said, some of these issues can be seen as tolerable. We try to show more a reasonable standard, more of a reasonableness test. So if it's something that you think is okay, but you're not sure, call us. We'll walk you through it. But if it's truly an intolerable, untenable situation, we may need to help you take it back to court.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I know that there was another question that I had noticed in the chat, Sabrina. One of our participants is wondering, when planning for travel, what types of things should they expect their co-parent to send to them? What should they know when there's going to be travel over the summer?
If there's travel, especially if there's travel abroad, it is very important to make sure you have that itinerary. You know where they're staying, you know who they're going to be with. If it is traveling to another country, you want to make sure you have a copy of your child's passport, birth certificate, anything that you need to make sure that you have those documents with you, or a copy of those documents in the event that anything were to happen. If they're traveling to a party to a country that's not a party to the Hague Convention, which means that it's not as easy to get your child back, you want to make sure that you have that in a court order to say that you always must know the whereabouts of your child. You certainly have every right as the parent to know where your child is at all times, who they're traveling with, where they're staying. And it's extremely important that if you know this before the judgment's entered, that you put it in the judgment to make sure you have certain parameters with which to follow, so that you, as the parent not traveling, has just as much control over that, and as much as you can anyway, as the parent traveling. Because sometimes there's not a lot of trust there. So you want to make sure your children are safe and secure and protected at all times.
Awesome. And then there was another question that was submitted before the seminar, and it was in relation to the 225 parenting schedule. And they were having a problem with getting their co-parent to agreeing to change it. They felt that the 225 was too frequent back and forth. And so when we're talking about things like summer, and when we're talking about things like planning, how do you go about getting your co-parent to agree to maybe some parenting time swaps to allow for that vacation?
It's difficult. If the 2-2-5 schedule is something that has been followed for a long time, sometimes it's challenging to get the other parent to change it. If you can try to discuss this with them in a mature, reasonable fashion, and you show the reasons why your child or children need it or requested it or prefer it, then perhaps they'll be more reasonable. If not, you may need to take it back to court. We have several of these cases where we help our clients change a parenting time schedule. It's much easier to change a parenting time schedule than custody or a custodial environment. So if you're not taking away any overnights from the other parent, it's much easier to work with that other parent. So try to let them see that you're not taking anything away, you're not altering the custodial environment in any way whatsoever, you're just making the days better for your children. Sometimes as they get older, week on, week offs are better. It just really depends on the ages of your children, what their activities are, the school in which they attend during the school year. Sometimes if there's a longer distance between parents and they are at one school, sometimes keeping the parent who is in the school district, to be that custodial parent during the week, and then the other parent has every weekend or whatnot. But I will tell you, the older the children get, when they're more involved in school activities or extracurricular activities, it's difficult to do a lot of the back and forth and back and forth. And when children start driving, they really do what they want anyway, even though the court order says something. It's really hard to control them at that point. But do your best to try to foster a loving environment, no matter what the parenting time schedule is. And do your best to communicate what's in the best interest of your children in an objective way to the other co-parent. And maybe over time, that other co-parent will come on board with that. And again, if you need to resort to hiring us, we're here to help you anytime.
So on that note, we have another question. So when you are taking your kid, right, and going on these vacations, day trips, what if your co-parent tells you that their child's location is none of their business and that having an emergency contact is not necessary? And they are just being kind of that stick in the mud and they're not really cooperating. Is there anything that we can do about that?
May I call you Kimberly? I think Kimberly is the one that asked the question. So, Kimberly, that's not tolerable. That should not be tolerated. It's not that is an intolerable response. It sounds like your co-parent, whether it's a he or a she, it sounds like that co-parent is, just resentful, mean, bully, not nice, not kind. If you need to resort to court action, then I would do that, because the longer that behavior goes on, the longer they'll feel entitled to that behavior. And you don't want to set a precedent that goes on that long. And you don't always want to be the one taking the high road. And you don't always want to be the one that is suffering in silence. Because the longer you let it go on, the more they will just dig their heels in and get much worse over time. You have every right, even if you're not a legal custodian, you do have a right to know where your child is. But typically, if you have legal custody and or physical custody, you have every right to know where your child is.
Absolutely. Awesome. We have another question.
I know you're our client.
Oh.
I just wanted to make sure I could say your name. But this is a special session. You can ask any questions that you want, because we don't have a lot of you here today. So we'll be replaying this over time, and we hope that we're answering all the questions that you have, and any of our current or potential clients or anyone out there that might need help. Because whether you're a client of Genesis's or not, we want you to flourish in your life. Children are so important to us. And there is nothing more personal than your relationship with your children. And dealing with co-parenting is so tricky. And I know firsthand that it can be very stressful and difficult. And not only through helping hundreds of clients over the years, but just in seeing personal relationships and in my own situation. Life can be difficult, and even in the best of circumstances, it can be stressful and it can be tiring and it can be exhausting, and you're just wondering if you're doing anything right. What are you doing that's gonna mess up your children, and what can you do to be better? So that's why we're here. We are passionate about helping you and helping you raise amazing kids, because they're the next generation that's taking over. And we want them to be happy and we want them to flourish. So we are here for you, and we want you to flourish so that they can flourish.
And if you are watching this as a recording later on, because we are going to be posting it on YouTube as well as our Facebook page and several of our other social media platforms, you can always feel free to follow our social media platforms, comment, leave us some questions, call our office at any point in time. If you are watching this video, please ask us your questions about co-parenting. We have our entire team here ready to help you.
And if there's no other questions, then I guess we're gonna take this time to say goodbye. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful summer. And please reach out to us anytime. We're here for you. Thank you so much.
Bye.